Do we have enough people?
1, 2, 3, 4, yeah.
We need 4.
We have
5.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Unless anybody has a problem, somebody told me that Emily Meat has to leave early tonight, so I was wondering if there was a problem if we did them first. I mean, I think everything's going to go pretty quickly anyway, but.
I don't care.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Jeff.
We're going to put Amity Meat first.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Amity Meat. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Arnold Gans. I'm an architect with offices at 110 Whitney Avenue in New Haven. Some 33 years ago, my client, Alan Rice, bought the property on Lucy Street, which is now the Amity Meat Center. At that time, it was a luncheonette. Had already been used for food service. At least that's what he has told me when they bought it. Since that time, of course, it has been they've done prepared foods and meats and other kinds of products, a food product there. They've been doing catering from there, but they have never had a place where you could actually sit down and eat any of their wonderful food. So what we're proposing is an addition. We are not asking for any variances other than this is by definition, a change of use. And that is really all we're asking for. We have enough parking to support the number of seats, but with the type and extent of business that they have, they need more room. So what we are here to propose is that we be allowed to add on the addition which you see all the way over to the east side of that building, which will also give them, for the first time, both male and female handicapped toilets. It'll give them some seating and a proper space for them to do the work. Now, there's already an extension on the original box of a building there, which you can see, which has never been used. It's never been occupied, has not been finished. It's been finished on the outside. But that is being included, and then the additional, I think it's 1,600 square feet from there. And that basically is to accommodate the seats. I think we have all of that information on there for you.
Ernie. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Maybe Mr. Rice could answer it if Mr. Gilbertson can't answer it. So was when it was a luncheonette, was the change of use changed?
I didn't know about that until our last meeting, so Alan, I don't know whether you can answer that.
I don't know, it was 33 years ago, I don't remember. I don't remember having a change of use at that time.
I can't speak to 30.
What, you were in 4th grade?
Sure. If that works for you.
Well, I wanted to work for you, actually. This is pushing it. Okay, so that actually kind of answers my question. But are there any other questions?
So you're using the new space together with the old space?
Well, we're using the original space as it is today. If you were to walk in the front door, we are using that space. It's all going to be redone, but we are going to use that, plus the addition that's on there now that you would see from the outside.
That's going to be used as
That
part
will
of
be
this
part
new-
of this, and will give us a chance to extend the very spare space that is being used now for the catering business. I mean, it's more than tight. It really doesn't work. And gives them a chance then to have a place where people can sit down and have their lunch.
It looks like you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 4 tops and 2 top as you've shown it there, so there's quite a bit of space.
Yeah, well, we're limited though by the amount of parking that we can generate, so that's as far as we can go, so that's the limiting factor. Yeah, we could put a whole lot more tables in there, but that's it.
Any change in the hours of operation?
I would have to ask Alan.
Yeah, we're gonna be open 7 days a week. We're gonna be open Sundays, half days.
From what hours to what hours?
Well, we're probably gonna try till 1 or 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. We'll play, but see how this is going. It's new.
Yeah. The outside of the siding for the addition, you know, is it gonna pretty much blend with the existing siding?
Yes, it will. Yeah, all of it'll continue to be a nice, white, clean building. And I think the front elevation shows the extent of the signage to one side that we'll use, which will be conforming with the regulations.
Does this impact at all the coolers or storage that's outside?
Some of those coolers that are sitting there now are going to have to be moved away. As you can see from the parking plan, all of those that are to the west side of the building, I guess that is, are going to have to be relocated.
You know, our commissioner might ask where the dumpsters are gonna be located.
I was waiting for my turn. But actually, I see where the dumpsters are being located.
They are shown on the site plan.
I was wondering if we could request some kind of enclosure around the dumpster.
We probably, yes, you can, and we can provide you with that.
Okay. It's like you were listening, reading the back of my head. Back of your head? Yeah, that's where I keep that stuff. Okay.
Would that be a 4-sided dumpster enclosure with a gate or the 3 sides? Just so that we can,
I know where you're going. Well, I personally would prefer a 4-sided with a gate, but that's me. And but I don't know how it looks from the site. I mean, we are going to be talking about this a little later, so we're kind of like, I'm kind of like asking if you guys will do this, as opposed to hopefully someday we can say you need to enclose your dumpster. Not you, but somebody else. So you know, I think that in situations where a gate could be put up there, that would be a better thing to do. And I will tell you, that is really coming from residents, kind of pointing out that there's a lot of dumpsters all around town, and they don't understand why we don't address them. And so I don't completely disagree with them. So, and I think it's, I mean, and to be honest with you, in a food business, I think it's probably better anyway. So, but I don't want to run anybody's business.
Spilling over and then blowing away. At least the fence holds some of that in. And, you know, more than just keeping things in the dumpster, it's everything that doesn't quite make it. So, we can address that, certainly.
Excellent. All right. Anything else? Nope. Okay, I think we're good. We can close the hearing. We don't actually make a vote until we go into the work session, but you're not required to stay for the work session. I want to be really clear about that. Unless your client wants to pay you to stay. I mean, I'm just, anyway. Okay, all right. Okay, so the next item on the public hearing agenda is John and Lindsay Otto, 180 Amity Road. Answers at 7 Selden Street. An application under the section 3.1.2.8 of the Woodbridge zoning regulations for the use of a licensed CrossFit facility. And I imagine we can do both public hearings at the same time. Application on section 4.7.1.8 of the Woodbridge zoning regulations for a special permit for a freestanding sign for a CrossFit facility. Welcome.
Good evening, Chairman Kaufman and the committee. First of all, we would like to thank you guys for holding this special meeting. It was really nice, and I'm sure on behalf of everybody, we're really appreciative of that.
I told everybody in the commission they'd be getting free memberships.
Okay.
Just kidding.
We'll see how our work session goes.
Which means you have to work on.
That's right.
Yeah,
You're
you
gonna
have to
go.
show up. You have to show up.
Okay, so
I
it's
show
not
up.
that
I
easy.
show up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
My name is Lindsay, and this is my husband, John.
couldn't accept it, so
So we're here today to get zoning for a building on 7 Selden Street for a CrossFit facility. We know that it is not currently an approved use, but that's why we're here today. Our main goal really is to improve the lives and the fitness of the residents of Woodbridge and the surrounding towns. And we're offering a program that at the moment isn't being offered in Woodbridge. So it's something a little bit different than traditional fitness and exercise programs, and it's got an added personal touch that really helps people motivate themselves and reach their goals.
Right, and just in addition to that, just what I've been doing, give us a little background on Lindsay and myself. We've been working with people in the human service field for a very long time. I'm principal of a school, Boys and Girls Village School, vice president of education vocational services, and not only serving those with disabilities for years. Lindsay and I have been working. We're both trainers, fitness trainers, in helping adults as well as youngsters to improve, again, their life, whether it's the health and fitness field, and it's a passion of ours. And like I said, Woodbridge is a town that Lindsay and I had both lived in surrounding towns very close for most of our lives, and just an ideal place for us and location and partner to work with. So, it's something that is a dream of ours that coming true, and like I said, to become a very strong facility in helping those, and again, improve the lives of those in Woodbridge.
So where are the surrounding competition? You said that there are other towns, but not in Woodbridge.
At the moment, the closest CrossFit gym, there's 2 that are close by, and one is in Bethany on Route 69, I believe. Could be 63.
63.
And there's one in Hamden as well, right off of Dixwell Avenue. So both are convenient, but for those people that are traveling, and I've sat in that traffic for years going to work, right down Amity Road, it's an ideal location for people to get to in the mornings as well as at night. So this whole valley area actually is like a void of CrossFit gyms. There's nothing in this whole area, and we live in the area, and we've always had to travel to and from gyms to get where we needed to go. But we think this is just a great addition to Woodbridge as well as the surrounding communities.
It looks like you have limited hours. Is there a reason?
We
for
do.
having such limited hours?
Yeah. So CrossFit isn't a gym where anybody can show up at any time. They are structured classes, and they're an hour each. The reason they're structured is because there's a lot of specific movements. You have to learn how to do it correctly, and you have to be coached through it to prevent injuries. So we start with usually classes are before general work hours, maybe 1 or 2 during the day, and classes that occur again after work hours. So we plan on starting with a 6 a.m. class, a 10 a.m. class, and then following up evening classes at 6 p.m.
One of the reasons I ask it is, although you've submitted it with the limited time, we know that's a commercial area down there.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that you would need to become successful, and obviously want to go to additional classes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'd like you to think about that now, because we really would not want to be limiting if we do approve this
Mm-hmm.
for no good reason.
I can tell you from prior experience with gyms, if we do add class times, it would be an early morning class, so it would turn to like a 5:30 a.m., a 6:30 a.m., which isn't really going to conflict with any businesses in the area. There will still be that 10 a.m., maybe one more during the day, which shouldn't be prime time, And then if we were to add classes on at the end of the day, it would be a 5:30. So the 6 would move back to 5:30, and then there would be a 6:30
And
p.m.
the number of people at each of these classes roughly?
It really varies. For at least the first year, I don't expect more than 5.
So it'd be-
We keep class sizes small, and you limit membership, so it's not gonna be like a Planet Fitness where 150 people show up at once. You get classes of 3, of 5, 1. Maybe on a weekend you get 10, but they're very small classes.
Now, is this a franchise you guys bought? Is that what this is?
Yes.
It's a franchise in the sense, but yeah, you have to go through training, you have to be certified, you have to go through a whole application process with CrossFit headquarters, and then they approve you.
I have a question for Terry and Chris, because this actually comes up and I never think to ask the question because I always think I'm going to ask afterwards. So when we talk about times of these businesses, why, I mean, I'm naive on maybe, but why do we want to be that concerned? I mean, to me, a normal business can start at 6 o'clock in the morning and go till 10 o'clock at night. I mean, at 10 o'clock at night is when noise things kick in. I mean, there's other things that kick in at 10 o'clock at night. So I'm kind of curious. I know we always ask the question, but I mean, and I think I'm going after Alan's point here, which is, are they saying that they only want to stay up until 5, and then if they do a class at 5:30, someone's going to turn them in and say you have to come back to planning and zoning? I don't find that very business friendly. So.
I think part of the answer is in what they were talking about, where if you look at their parking plan, the parking is utilizing cross times when other people aren't doing it. And so to be able to accomplish that, you have to have some sense of the fact that, you know, the parking would be available during the time frames that they had. I mean, we're certainly not encouraging parking that's paving all downtown.
Right.
And so you're trying to cross-utilize the parking that's there. And the sense of hours gives you a better approach to whether or not what they're proposing is realistic in terms of the actual parking that's available, because people that are going aren't using mass transit.
So that brings me up to my next question. That's to you guys, actually, because so I'm in favor of this, obviously. I don't have a problem with that. But we have a lot of applications that come, and I get the whole thing about overlapping parking, but we have a lot of applications that come into us and say, yep, we got 6 spaces over here. And I always have this Monty Python vision that it's the same 6 spaces that keep getting sold.
It's probably the same 40, just to reinforce your fears. And in our regulations, we don't endorse the concept of sharing of spots.
Although we've practiced it. But I hear you.
But we practice it, and we encourage it. And so I do believe that you're correct, that there's been some cross-pollination of spots. But in our endeavor to try to accommodate uses, I mean, I think that 15 years ago, when I first came to work here, we did not have a parking problem.
Right.
You could turn tractor trailers around on Selden Plaza, not hit a car. I think that having a parking problem is a good problem to have. And we're not anxious to have to add to impervious surfaces, add to the cost of infrastructure for parking. And to your previous point, however, you know, the information that we've collected on Schedule A on a particular business and business hours and numbers of employees have been one of those things that we've typically collected on a Schedule A. It makes a good deal more difference on the next business that comes into that spot as opposed to the business that's in front of you. And I think that's its value of collecting what you might be able to see, because the next business is going to say, we're just doing what they were doing. And you may not like that. So you might want to, what a Schedule A does is give you predictability of employees, predictabilities of activity inside the building, and we do encourage people to imagine, before they make their application to you, to imagine yourselves successful. as to not to have to come back, 2, 3, 4 years later and change that. So, I think it's useful not for the present application, but the use that'll be in this business someday.
Well, but going along with that, I mean, they're talking about, I'm sorry you have to sit through this.
That's
No,
okay.
this is
But,
good.
if they're a
Very
CrossFit
well.
and the next business that wants to go in there, let's assume CrossFit's pretty minimal. I mean, maybe it's another gym, but let's say it's not. Let's say there's probably a good chance it's not going to be a gym, and therefore it's going to have different parking requirements, and then they're going to have to come back to us, and at that point, then we talk about the hours for that business. I guess
I would hope that before that happens, to this particular address, I believe that we should look forward to them being a long and happy business occupation.
I'm anticipating that. I don't mean to suggest anything else.
But before that, we would be, as you are aware, well served by what I've told you as a vigorous use table inside of our zoning regulations that would give a as of right designation to a wide group of uses that we could imagine. And our present page and a half of uses would grow to some 65 pages. And that would give a business owner some predictability in that sort of thing. And so a lot of these things would be solved. You're approving things piece by piece and in a way that is dramatically affecting the business community's ability to lease space.
Well, so I mean, I hear you, but again, I think it's a problem for the business if they suddenly think they have to come back to us. And I go back to your first statement, which I agree with. Parking problem is a good thing. So I don't know. I think we should be careful of limiting this, even if they say we only need it till 5 o'clock. I think that we need to put a cushion in there so that someone doesn't have to come back if they're something gets sick.
This is a public hearing. You may easily impose either more liberal conditions or more restrictive conditions. As you see fit.
That's why I'm talking to the commission. I mean, I was kind of setting it up because I know they're saying X. Someone may say to me, well, that's all they're asking for. So, but I think that they're going to be so successful that they're going to need to stay open longer and work harder.
I will say that in our application, even though when we plan to start, we plan to do a 6-10-6, in our application, we do have the hours starting at 5:30, going through to 7:30. The 10 a.m. is in there. We have an 11 a.m. in here, as well as a 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. So we did, I know that when we originally submitted the application, we were told to assume that we were successful and put what we thought our ultimate goal would be. So we did. So we've overestimated before times and after times to hopefully accommodate for any growth.
Well, you'll probably be so successful, you'll probably want to go over to Amity Meat and check them out for dinner at some point.
Load up on protein.
You never know.
We're doing both applications at the same time?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the makeup of your sign, the materials?
So we plan to have a 4 by 4 square feet in area sign. Colors black and gold. And the sign will be a composite material that's going to withstand the city snowplows coming up and down the street.
No, it's actually going to be
2 by 2.
24 square feet.
Sorry, 24.
Sorry about that.
Sorry
It's
about
going to be 4 by 6.
Okay.
Okay. We plan to put it in the same spot that the brewing company had their sign. There are
Without the kegs.
without the kegs, because they took them. I saw them across the street. They've got their signs set up with those. So we will have posts in there cemented into the ground. We also plan, and you don't see it in this drawing, but we plan to do a nice planting flower bed on the bottom with lights to make it look nice. There is a bush there that sort of obstructs, you can't see it, but to the right of our sign, we plan to kind of trim that to be nice. It's a little wild right now.
You know that black and gold is Amity colors.
That's why we picked it.
I was wondering.
That is why we picked it, yeah.
Yeah, you'll see the sign that says auto strength and conditioning. It's going to look, the rendition's going to look a little different. It's going to have our name is, we were approved for CrossFit Gilded, which is gilded as sort of a gold-plated, sort of a gold standard type of fitness that we are providing. So you'll see that on there.
So this is, Chris, this is the only sign I get, and the one that they put in the back.
They're the ones, there's two signs. There's
Right.
one that would face Selden, one.
The other ones were
Over the garage,
just
over the door?
a special
Yep.
permit that I had to go in for later.
Right. The
That
other ones
wasn't-
that she can do are zoning permits that she just applies for
Yes.
straight to the building department. She doesn't need to come through here. So this is the only one that requires action by you.
So, but should we know what else
Sure, I can tell you.
she's doing so we can consider whether we have a lot of
Yep.
signs here?
So there will be a sign. There's a garage, a bay door in that little alleyway. Yeah. So we plan to put a sign right there, and also we'll have another sign on the back of the building, I guess, the front of the building on Selden Street.
On the building? So there's one on the building, one on the back, and then this? So there's 3 signs?
Correct.
Right.
And then the window sign.
We could, yeah.
What do you
The
see?
window sign.
The window
It's on the letter
sign.
in the front.
The front one.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
So one of them is 4 square feet, where it says. I guess that's the entrance one on the wall.
And that one doesn't have to be necessarily in that window on the front of the building there. I don't think it will be. That,
There's a sign on the building. Also a sign in the window?
on the let's say the front side of the building, is going to be just that one sign. It's not going to be in the window. I know the picture that I show here, it shows it covering the window. I don't know.
I think we took that out because it
Okay.
wasn't part of this hearing. We just had it. No. It's because it wasn't needed for this, so we took it out. But it's just.
But there will be a sign on this.
So could you hold it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so this is the front side of the building.
Essentially
and
the same thing you're seeing on your.
probably below this here, the window here, we'll have a nice sign there.
And the sign that's showing there now is in the window?
Correct. So yeah, that's not good.
Because your windows, when you have signs in the windows, they're limited to 25% of the window area. So they wanted a sign that was slightly bigger, so that's why
Yes.
they're considering putting it on the wall.
Given the
Correct.
height of the window, having a sign that small wouldn't really
So
do
is
it.
it possible to get you to say you won't put it in the window if you're putting it on the wall?
Yes.
Correct. Yes. No window
Yeah,
sign.
I
I think that's probably what you were trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
I'm just going by the picture, which they don't think we should be looking at.
Yes.
And then now I know why they're right. So there isn't not window sign.
No, no permanent windows.
Okay. Cool. All right. Are there any other questions?
I'm all set?
Anyone else? All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. The last item in the public hearing is Frank Cioli doing business as Grimaldi's Pizza, 1646 Litchfield Turnpike. Application for modification of a special permit for a restaurant liquor establishment issued under 3.12.1. Sir, if you could just sign in, please.
One of the principals.
Okay.
Sign my name here.
You forgot to say something.
And you explained it beautifully. I'm here for a modification of the liquor permit already issued.
3.12.1 subsection C.
So I think everybody has a drawing, and we're simply looking for a modification to actually install a bar. And if you look at the drawing, the spot where we'd like to build the bar is in a separate room from the main restaurant. It's got a separate entrance, and it's completely separate from the main dining room where the pizza oven and main dining areas.
I tried to tell you we should have this last time.
I know, you're right. Well,
So you know.
we just, it was an oversight, actually.
Yeah, that's all right.
So I really, that's basically why I'm here. I mean, it's pretty simple.
That's the only change? Changing the business out and the hours of operation?
Same hours of operation, we're not changing anything. We already have approval for liquor license.
Yeah.
We simply want to put a bar in. And we just, would like
fine.
to.
We're there.
Okay.
Are there any more questions? There you go.
Thanks so much.
It was awesome. We heard you were getting paid by the hour, so we're trying to move things along here.
Thank you.
The next thing that's on here is a receipt and appropriate action regarding the following. Duce Echo USA Corporation, 360 Amity Road, application for a modification of a special permit issued for the JCC regarding the intention to construct a solar-powered canopy structured on the parking JCC parking lots.
I don't know that anyone is here for this. This is, they are requesting that they be put down for a hearing, and you're basically accepting the application.
Okay, so we're going to do the hearing. I thought we were going to hear it tonight. I thought that was the point, but okay.
Scheduled
Okay, cool. So we'll do that next month.
September.
That's what I meant. September.
This just gives the program a month. You know, so we would ask this question in September, we would have been hearing it in October, so it gives them a leg up.
So we're going to move into our work session. I guess the only other thing is if we find out tonight that we're meeting in August, never mind, let's just leave it as okay.
They would be delighted,
Yeah, I bet.
by the way.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
They being the commission members?
No.
No.
I was just clarifying, I'm just clarifying.
No.
It will be the solar.
Well, there may be other things that happen tonight that require us to come back in August. Okay, so our work session, so the first item on the agenda is Amity Meats.
Move approval of the application, 2428 Lucy Street, adding the use of the restaurant area into a portion of the existing building as demonstrated by Mr. Gans in the public hearing.
Second.
Any questions? I think actually we're just approving it for what it was already.
Well, I understand.
Yes.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask.
We don't know.
But now it's going to be on the record.
Yes.
So that is what it is.
Right.
They didn't keep it as many good.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? There you go. You can leave now.
Or stay.
Well, that's true, but I want to be really clear that.
He's not kicking you out.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John and Lindsay Otto, 180 Amity Road, the use of a licensed CrossFit facility and also the sign. Can we do both of these at the same vote? Does
Well,
anybody
the
have-
sign needs to be modified compared to what they put in here.
Yeah.
Because they've requested a permanent, I think we should do them separately.
Okay, so we'll do the first one first.
I move to accept the the change of use as far as the hours of operation. Instead, I would propose from 5:30 until 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night.
I agree with that.
I'll second it.
Comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay, John Lindsay Otto, 180 Amity Road. Application, section 4.7.1, section 8 of the Woodbridge zoning regs for a special permit for a freestanding sign for a CrossFit facility.
Now,
Do one at a time or both? Because they requested a permanent window sign and a freestanding sign.
But they're
I would
taking-
make a motion for a permanent exterior sign on a wall and one
Do-
freestanding sign.
And no window sign.
And, right, and no window
Do they
sign.
need,
You don't-
yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
Right,
You don't have to
exactly.
act on
We're
the
only
wall
acting
sign.
on the,
Freestanding,
Except,
correct?
except we went after, Terry spoke with one of the businesses nearby, I thought, the UPS store, because they had an external sign on the building that was too large.
they actually still have too many signs, but we're not gonna go there.
They
So-
had too much signage.
Right, signage.
Oh,
Right.
too much signage, aha.
Under the regs. So this is only for the freestanding?
Correct.
Okay.
The other signs they can apply
Apply
for
for-
through a zoning permit, through the building.
Including the wall. Got it.
Yes.
But they've also said, although it's not part of the application, that they were doing a wall sign, not a window sign.
Yes,
And that was,
but that would be done,
Our staff knows that.
yes.
It's 4x6 sign, is that what it was?
Yes. Well, I make a motion to approve the freestanding sign.
Second.
any questions, concerns, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That's it.
There you go. No, we have one more, sorry.
Oh,
The one that you said, why is he here?
yeah, the,
Grimaldi's Pizza application for a modification for the special permit for a restaurant liquor establishment issued under section 3.12.1, section C.
motion to, ahead,
Move approval.
second.
Questions, concerns, problems? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, I didn't ask anybody. I asked the question.
I know.
I forgot about
I
that.
know you didn't.
Oops. I usually have Buddy tell me that.
By the way, did we ever get the answer to why it's coal brick oven pizzeria?
Well, you can ask him,
He's right here.
Why is it a coal brick oven?
Because it's fueled by coal.
That's
all.
And by the way, that's what Pepe's is. Oh, never mind. There's another place in New Haven. It's cold.
I'm just asking the question.
Thank you.
Thank
you very
you.
much.
All right.
Can't just schedule a hearing for the solar panels and places.
Oh,
Yes, September, please.
You don't need a motion for that, do you?
There wasn't really any formal thing that said you were doing it, so at least I got
Okay.
a consensus.
Yeah, consensus of the board.
Consensus.
All right, so the next thing we're covering tonight is an update for the town plan of conservation and development. CUPOP and conservation are here this evening, and I think they sent everyone a little email, just in case they thought we weren't doing our job. Thank you. And they're going to talk to us. We're hoping they also get paid by the hour.
But no memberships.
So we have copies if you need them in paper.
Got him.
You guys all have it by email, or do you want it by paper?
Gotta get everyone to the tablets. I'm one of those people.
You mean e-meeting? I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Look, it's official, it's in the minutes.
All right, good evening. So this is a joint recommendation. Thanks, Jeff.
It's not Sheila, that's for sure.
Well, the reason he's saying that is that Tammy doesn't know who you are, and this is being recorded, so we need to know who you are.
I'm sorry, Tim. Jason Morrow, Conservation Commission.
Sheila McCraven, CUPOP.
So the document in front of you is a result of a number of meetings between CUPOP and Conservation to come up with some joint recommendations for the plan of conservation and development. We felt some pressure knowing that this had to come out by the end of this year. So a lot of the recommendations that are in here are forward-looking. For example, in here you'll see talk about developing a rating system or developing classifications, and that's because we feel that there's not quite enough time to have a concrete something in the plan in time for the deadline. So what we're making are general recommendations and to work towards those goals that we list in here. We'll quickly run through this. I'll start off we were talking about the definition of open space, and we felt that the state covered it pretty well. There was not a whole great need to elaborate further, although we did call out two special sections that the state uses. One talking about farmland and one forest land, and the thought behind including some language about that was that if grant opportunities arise sometime in the next 10 years for forests or for farms, we want to make sure that we're inclusive about the language so that we don't miss any grant opportunities that come down the road. We do recommend clarifying some sections. Historic sites, historic can be interpreted in many different ways. We would like to be a little more specific about it. And we make reference here to the Connecticut Historic Preservation Office and their definition of a historic property. We also thought it might be useful to include more concrete examples of natural and scenic resources in the town, and likewise for recreational opportunities. Further in the document, we begin to talk about classifications of open space. There's natural open space, meaning something that's pristine, untouched, never been developed, acting as a habitat, likewise. Unprotected open space, obviously, property that could be developed on. Protected open space, something that has a conservation deed or some other legal restriction protecting it. Stop me if there's any questions as we go through. We have a very brief section here, purposes and use of open space. We feel it's important to have good reasons why there's open space and why we have the open space and any potential uses there are. So we presented a bulleted list: habitat protection, preservation of the town character, recreation, agriculture, and potential future municipal needs. And then we make reference to the open space plan. The last time the plan was developed was in 2003, so it's long overdue for revision. And I feel that conservation needs to take this up as a big project moving forward. Not likely to be completed by the end of this year in time for any inclusion in the POCD, but something that we're going to work on and probably put in place some regular updates to it. I don't think it should go from 2003 to 2004 to 11 years before being looked at again. I think it should be looked at least as often as the POCD, if not twice as often. And a big part of that is going to be talking about the greenways, because that's a trend. There's a movement in place on the west side of town for West Rock to have a greenway going all the way up the West River, and that encompasses part of our town. So the greenway is something that's mentioned in the 2003 plan, and I think it's important to revise it looking ahead as what's coming down the pike.
They refer to it as a watershed?
West River Greenway? West River is trying to get status as a greenway itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the watershed and the river itself.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Excuse me, one question. On the open space plan, why isn't the basics of it not included within the conservation and development plan?
And it should be, as it was done at that time. The open space plan was revised in 2003, and very much content from that was lifted right out and placed into the POCD for 2005. That document hasn't been revised.
Okay.
So
how do we handle it now? You're saying you don't want to, because of time constraints.
Right.
Understand, you're not going to be able to update that until after the conservation plan is finished.
Right. I think a
How do we make sure that what's in the plan, I mean the conservation plan, covers what you're going to do? Because if it doesn't, if there's a discrepancy, you have problems.
Absolutely. I think moving forward, what we're looking to do is work towards revising that open space plan as quickly as we can, and maybe some of it could be incorporated sort of last minute if possible. If not, then we probably look towards making addendums to the POCD, including the language from the open space plan. It's not a process that we would like to do, but I think it would be wise to mention that in the POCD, the open space plan will be developed, and try to keep the language
is broad.
Broad without getting
I just
trapping
want to make
ourselves.
sure that there's no conflict, there's not a
Yeah.
conflict between the two.
And there shouldn't be.
I'm not actually in favor of doing that.
No.
I think you should try to get as much done as possible.
All right, we're going to meet every other day,
No,
and
I
you're
mean,
going to come every week, Joe.
I'm just wondering how,
I'm not
you know.
trying to make fun of it, but I do think that you're
Right.
setting yourselves up. I mean, what happens if you come back and to do it, and the P&Z says no, we don't want to do that?
So one of the things we're here to do
I
tonight.
don't think they'd ever do that. I mean, not us, obviously.
Of course not.
But you know what I'm saying. I mean,
One
I
of the
think
two
that-
big asks we have for you tonight is help. Because as a group of volunteers, Conservation, which is going to be working on the open space plan, and CUPOP, which we're going to get to on the final 2 pages of this, we need some help with some of this work, and we would like to get it done in time. If you can share with us sort of the very latest by which we can get it for inclusion in the plan, we would like to hit that deadline. We're going to need some professional help from either it's town hall staff, maybe it's the one in the room, but that would help us tremendously. Ideally, we'd like to be able to do it. It's up to you guys.
I think, I hear you, and so when Malone and McBroom comes on next, we'll
Yeah.
have that discussion with them, but
We'll hear more.
I would strongly encourage that, this is like pretty important part
Mm-hmm.
of the POCD, and I think that if we can't get it finished, then I think it suddenly is going to be minimized. And
It's going to be, what?
It's not going to be as
Open
important, it's not
space
going to come as
is
important.
critical in this town.
So I don't think you should shoot for amending it. I think that, I mean, maybe there's a way, maybe there's a priority list. I mean, maybe the, the classification things. I mean, maybe that can be
Yep.
something worked
Yeah.
on later. But I do think that it's a pretty serious part of
And
our
as
town.
Sheila mentioned, having a deadline, nothing gets done without a deadline. So if we had some firm drop dead in stone, this would be helpful.
What's our meeting in September?
That's a quick deadline.
Let's back into it real quickly. I mean, you've talked
Well, I
about.
thought, actually, before you go, Chris, I mean, not that, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. I'd rather have the discussion when Malone's up here. So,
Yeah, let us get through
they're
this
gonna be,
document
they're gonna be
very
sitting here
quickly.
anyway, so.
We'll let you know all of our asks, and then we'll sit back and listen. So if you flip to the next page, the categories of publicly owned property, I think that Woodbridge is quite unique in the state in having what the commission that we have, the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Property. So it's actually embedded in the charter of the town of Woodbridge that this commission will categorize the land in the following 4 categories, and you've got them here. The land and buildings dedicated to open space with some protections. Land and buildings, the uses of which are under the direction of existing commissions. For example, the Recreation Commission, the Woodbridge Board of Education, etc. Land and buildings, the uses of which are under the direction of existing, are not under the direction of existing, which means they fall to the Board of Selectmen. And then lastly, land and buildings to which the town has the option to purchase and/or the right of first refusal, and that would be all the water company properties, etc. That's a big portion of the open space in the town. So it's our charge on a yearly basis to have that list. And we're in the process of finalizing an update to that list, and that should be available soon. That's something that we can handle as a commission, CUPOP. What we're suggesting, though, and part of our recommendations here is the next heading here is classes of use of the publicly owned property. So we envision, and we've looked at several other plans in other states and other municipalities in Connecticut, and we're looking at Class A, which would be low impact use, Class B, moderate impact use, that's where your recreation, organized sports would take place, and then Class C, possible high impact use, that is reserved for future municipal needs. As an example, we saw that happen when we needed to build a new firehouse, and we used a piece of publicly owned property to do that, which did not have open space restrictions on it. So not only does every piece of publicly owned property have a category, according to what CUPOP needs to determine, but we think there should also be a class. Now, we're going to go to the Board of Selectmen and talk about that. That may get embedded in the ordinance. It may end up in the charter. It may not. They may reject our recommendation. But we're also letting you know that we think that those classes would help clarify for the public. And that's what we sort of envision the Plan of Conservation Development, helping to clarify for the public what we currently own, and what we're planning to do with it and what we are not planning to do with it. So that's one set of recommendations. Next, we would like to talk about reclassification. So that's a currently owned piece of property that may be needed for something like a ball field or some sort of less than low impact use. So we need dugouts, we need a field house, we need lacrosse nets. Or we need to classify land. In the future, we may have municipal needs that we can't even envision at this point.
Well, how do you do that if, I mean, some of the...
We want to make it very difficult to reclassify. Once the classification has happened,
Very difficult to reclassify.
yes, we want to make it difficult to
So you're
reclassify.
not talking about retroactive?
No, so there has to be a classification process first. That's where we need help. That was one of our asks, is we need help. Some things are clearly deed restricted and cannot be used for anything but open space. And we want to classify them as they have to be low impact or moderate impact. But we even need to clarify that. There are times when the Recreation Commission says, hey, can we have Frisbee golf on a piece of property? We see that as low impact or even moderate impact. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? Right now, we don't know. So if we could classify things as moderate impact, low impact, and then possible high impact. There are very few parcels that are possible for high impact. We're not suggesting that we should make more parcels that way. What we want to do is preserve open space, not set it up for future municipal use. Keeping in mind, there certainly have been people at our commission meeting that have said, hey, look what happened, the situation in Newtown. They had no idea they were going to need a new elementary school. Suddenly they had a need for building something which we can't envision at this point. We don't even want to speculate what future needs 20, 30, 40 years down the line might be in Woodbridge. But there certainly should be some land that is not already dedicated to open space or has a deed restriction that could be available for a future Board of Selectmen if an emergency arises. That's what we're talking about for reclassification, not an everyday occurrence. We're not envisioning reclassification happening very often, but in extenuating circumstances.
Why wouldn't you then be somewhat, I mean, when you do your inventory, aren't you?
Well, we have a very large parcel in Fitzgerald that is currently not restricted in any way.
It was bought for a school, I think. Which property was
There was another property called the Meats property, which
yeah,
was
right, Meats.
purchased for the purposes of the school.
Which turned out not to have the sight lines to have entry onto the state highway.
Well, I'm
So
glad that
it's
was the
different.
reason.
So we're not imagining that as commissioners now we can envision 20, 30, 40 years in the future, but this is what essentially we feel that the plan of conservation development is asking for, some vision that goes a great distance. So our recommendation would be some classification, just to allow people to understand what's currently owned and what it might be used for. And then the last page here is,
I like your low impact, high, and moderate, and high, by the way.
it's pretty clear to the layperson, I think. Yeah.
Not too detailed, but it says quite a bit.
Yeah, and we found that in both the Guilford plan and Rhode Island, Bristol, Rhode Island. We did a little homework. So then lastly, on that last page, acquisition of publicly owned property, we would like to formalize the process a little bit. We've certainly seen that there has been some request for acquisition, whether it be a conservation easement, an outright purchase, et cetera. We'd like to create a form. We're going to suggest this to the Board of Selectmen. This is not something that I think TPZ would need to endorse or not endorse. You certainly are welcome to do so if you like, but we're going to be going to Board of Selectmen with this. A review and a rating report to be generated for any possible future purchase. And then management, that's something I think that's more in Jason's field.
Right, right. It does lean into CUPOP and the use
A
of
little
publicly
bit.
owned property.
Yeah. Mhm.
But with the great wealth of publicly owned properties that we have, what's being done with them? I mean, there are walking trails maintained by the Woodbridge Land Trust. And I've asked the Land Trust if they have any maintenance plan guides of any sort. And they said that they don't have any at the moment. They'll see if they have something buried in their archives. But I feel, and it's the feeling of conservation, that we need to look towards management of the properties that we have, more than just town hall, schools. We're talking about more of the open space areas, whether it's better management of the trails, whether it's planning to do some sort of limited farming on a town parcel or it's sustained forestry on a parcel. The Water Authority and the state have done sustained forestry on open space in the area as well. So these are all things to be discussed, but there certainly needs to be some thought put into a management plan, whether it's a general management plan that encompasses all properties, or to focus it down further to a very specific parcel. How do you manage the Fitzgerald property? How do you manage the Eldersley property? Because each parcel is slightly different in whether the habitat, whether it's watershed, how recreation might be used on it. So we felt that it's important to talk about management of the publicly owned properties.
One component of that is a budget for that sort of thing. So there was a study by the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Science about the Fitzgerald Tract specifically, and it talked about invasive species that's starting to take root, and it gave suggestions to how we could combat some of that and manage the property. We would need to allocate funds for that, obviously. It doesn't happen by magic. We do have some volunteer efforts. We do have some people involved. Certainly the Land Trust and other organizations are doing efforts. But if the town wants to be serious about it, this is essentially a budget ask, maybe in the next budget cycle.
Right. And
wish us luck.
And getting towards that, the last piece in here is talking about the sale of publicly owned property. And as we reviewed the properties that are held by the town, there's various small pieces thrown into the town, usually through a tax acquisition. People didn't pay taxes, the town acquired the property. And some of these parcels could be used for a private residence. And if the town were to sell that, the proceeds from that sale would go into an open space fund to go towards purchasing properties more meaningful towards a greenway or towards management of property. As Sheila mentioned, there's need to actually spend some money to manage the properties. So we talk about a formal process beyond what's already in Chapter 105 of the Town Code that talks about disposition of real property. Our feeling is that we need to have a little more formal process. Just like a more formal process for acquiring property, there needs to be a likewise process to dispossess property in town, specifically around open space.
Now, is this something that your two commissions envision as publicly available knowledge?
Yes.
Right from the get-go?
Yep, that's the intent. The intent is to make the process more transparent than it has been and more formal than it has been. Where if the town is interested in a parcel, a sheet an acquisition form is completed and submitted to the town. So it's clear what the parcel is and the reasons for it, for being interested in it. And the flip side works as well. If a person is interested in giving or selling their property to the town, they should follow the same process.
So who would be the primary entity that would be involved from the town perspective in that classification of, we want your property? Who would do that?
So we envision staff being the front line, so town hall staff, and then when a determination is made that it should be looked into in more detail, either depending on the nature of the property, the Conservation Commission, CUPOP, maybe both. There could be instances where both commissions should weigh in and make a full report to the Board of Selectmen. So essentially you would have the Conservation Commission coming to the Board of Selectmen to say, here we would like to begin a process. Our recommendation is you look into acquiring this, getting a conservation easement on that, whatever it would be. And that stops the sort of ad hoc discussions that sometimes take place and sometimes confuse people as to whether they've talked to the town or whether they haven't talked to the town. We'd want it to go through town hall.
Well, I think that there can be value to private discussions, and I wouldn't want to discourage that, because I think over the course of time, as long as the process unfolds, where you have public availability of this knowledge, before there's votes and there's action taken, you can still make the process amenable to people who just want to have a conversation.
As long as they understand that the first formal step is the form.
And I
so
think
you haven't had a official conversation until you've filled out the form.
But
you can informally discuss anything you want.
I mean, a plan is a plan that makes recommendations. It doesn't establish policy.
Correct.
No, so we're going to the Board of
whatever is
Selectmen.
recommended in the plan or encouraged or suggested, it's going to be up to the town, whatever entity, I would assume the Board of Selectmen, to
Right.
then,
Some of this stuff doesn't even apply to.
I think they prefaced it by just telling us.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
Some of this stuff
FYI.
has nothing to do with us.
It would be great if it was embedded, maybe it's an appendix of the town plan that says there's a process. And this is what Conservation, CUPOP, and the Board of
Right.
Selectmen have decided.
So that's the part that
right,
would make sense to have in
Right,
the
for a
plan, is
process,
that
right.
there is a process.
But I do know in other towns, and whether it's in the appendix or not, but in other towns, there have been identifications of existing parcels, whatever the classifications may be.
sure, that's in
And
our
there's-
current plan.
Right, and there's periodic discussion about that, and that changes in terms of priorities of whether or not that's going to make the top of the list, because you don't know about availability, but, you know, you've at least identified the parcels. And I'm not sure that all of what you've given us here, I'm not sure where that's going to fit, but I think that's important at some level.
A formal rating scale.
Well, you're talking about review and ratings. I think that can change over the course of time, but I think whoever should be in charge of that with respect to your commissions, if it's not yet publicly owned property, but it's basically to be conserved or however that works, it's nice to have a knowledge base. And you can use that in lots of different ways. And I'm not sure how well we are with that knowledge base quite yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement. I think we're talking around the same points.
And that we're trying to provide some general recommendations.
Recommendations without putting too fine a point on it, knowing that these conversations can evolve over the course of 6 or 8 meetings and going around and around on things to really hammer out a really fine-tuned acquisition process.
Should note that many times we've been using the existing town plan of conservation and development and the list that's in the open space for purchases or steep grants or whatever. And so it's very critical that there be a listing of specific parcels in that town plan, because when we're asked to write a support letter through Tony or something, I have to be able, or whoever staff is, has to be able to cite specifically to the town plan and say, in the plan, this is your, been identified as a parcel that would want to be purchased. And so you need to leave that in there in some way, shape, or form, because that's part of a grant process. You
Right,
have to
we
do
actually
that.
asked about that.
Because that is interesting, because I heard the opposite from the NRCS and the DEEP people that I was
I
speaking
can
with.
only tell you what we've done in letters that
Yeah.
I've been requested to write for Tony when he's been asking for grants.
Yeah. We were concerned about putting a list in the POCD, knowing that there's not a clear reason for why they're in there. There's 2 or 3 sentences about some of the parcels that are in there now. And some of those have been acquired. Some are no longer available. But as Malone and McBroom have presented, we have quite a bit of open space. And we might want to take a look at slowing it down a little bit in terms of acquisitions. So we looked at, should we put in a list or not? We need to have a better idea of why we're going after properties, other than saying it's a beautiful farm, we should buy it because it preserves town character, and just plopping that into the POCD.
One of those 2 different issues, though, one is the list of open space. The other is that rating you're talking about.
Yep.
We can
Right.
put the list of open spaces in there as has been in to date, and we can even say this can be amended or edited or whatever as the need arises. But the rating you're talking about is
Right.
separate.
So what Malone and McBroom has prepared for the listing of open space, it's on a map, it's listed out. The question of whether we could rate any of those properties, what we found is that there is no consistent rating scale for the current POCD. So we didn't want to replicate something that's not based on a rating scale. What we're recommending both to you and to the Board of Selectmen is that a rating scale be established.
Right.
And we saw a draft of that from Malone and McBroom, and we've been talking at our joint meetings of CUPOP and Conservation, that there's some slight nuances there, but it's along the same lines. We would like to get a formal rating system in place that is followed at least for the next 10 years.
Jason, what was the reason that said they were just not encouraging listing.
Because it can affect the value of the property, the asking prices of the property. If people find that their property is desired by the town, they might approach a sale differently than they would otherwise. And having it listed in the POCD, they might feel that their property is more important than another.
And so how do they recommend dealing with what Chris is saying, whereas, what do you mean you've been looking for this property for open space? Somebody wants to put a Walmart here, you've never said anything in your plan that says you want to have it as open space.
They talk about developing a formal process, a rating, a clear rating
So
system.
by doing the rating and the formal process, okay, got it.
Yeah.
I see, so a piece of property could come up, and you could use this process
To
got it.
base your case that it's an important.
About the deadline.
Yes.
And, right, and
It
if a
comes
grant,
back to the
and if a
deadline.
grant comes up that
Yes.
could apply to a parcel, it would probably accelerate the process to get that parcel evaluated, rated, and then in the letter that's written, it says this parcel is important and it rates at this level, and these are the reasons why we want to go after it.
Have you had a chance to share your thoughts about classification of open space with the land trust? Because I understand that that same sort of questioning of how to classify open space is going on inside the land trust presently.
Terrific. Yeah, we should ask them to come and talk.
I met with Chris.
Good.
Just what Terry said.
Okay.
I was waiting for Terry to finish.
Good.
Same question.
Let's see if we can
Because
make
I know
our
they're kind of on the
definitions
same path, and
coincide.
they're, and I only talked to Chris, I didn't talk to the whole commission, obviously, but they're just as concerned about where to go.
Are they going to make a formal recommendation to TPZ? 'Cause
I don't know.
It'd be great to
I'm
hear.
thinking that I was pretty early in the game to have the discussion, so I don't know. I'm hoping so.
I'll speak to Chris about that.
I think they were looking.
And the Parks Association and any other group that's active in town,
Mhm.
if there's any other parcel holders. Be great.
Those are our recommendations. We welcome feedback.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it's
Especially deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell us.
we're gonna probably just pass those deadlines on without much discussion. We're just gonna vote on them. All right, cool. So we're gonna talk to Michael and Tim.